To the Nile by John Keats, 1795 to 1821. Son of the old moon mountains African, chief of the pyramid and crocodile, we call thee fruitful, and that very while a desert fills our seeing inward span. Nurse of swart nations since the world began, art thou so fruitful, or dost thou beguile such men to honour thee, who, worn with toil, rest for a space twixt Cairo and Decan? O may dark fancies err, they surely do. 'Tis ignorance that makes a barren waste of all beyond itself. Thou dost bedew green rushes like our rivers, and dost taste the pleasant sunrise. Green isles hast thou too, and to the sea as happily dost haste. Okay, so this is a poem by John Keats. Keats was one of the second generation of Romantic poets, together with Lord Byron and Shelley. Yeah. Okay, he died at a very early age of tuberculosis. Yeah, and he was born and brought up in London. Okay, so this is a poem to the River Nile, and I think he's looking at the Nile and thinking about it and thinking about all its history. The Nile, the longest river in the world, or is it the Amazon? Well, they argue about this. So, son of the old moon mountains African. So here he's saying that the Nile is the son of the mountains of the moon. Okay, so here as son, he's personifying it, he's making it a person. Yeah, and this is talking about its birthplace. Although for many years there have been arguments about the original source of the Nile. Chief of the pyramid and crocodile. So chief, the god, if you like, of the pyramid. Okay, so the pyramids were built near the Nile, and these were, I think, pointing up or raising up towards the gods. So here he's saying that the Nile is one of the chief gods. It's a holy river. And the crocodile, well, I think the crocodile is the one of the embodiments of Osiris, the ancient Egyptian god. So he's saying here that the Nile is the chief of the gods. He's above the pyramids and above Osiris. We call thee fruitful, and that very while a desert fills our seeing inward span. So people say the Nile is fruitful, it produces lots of things. But however, when we stop and think about the Nile, we think about the Nile running through the desert, and this is the image that we get. But in fact, it's the Nile Valley is a very fruitful place. Nurse of swart nations since the world began, art thou so fruitful? So, nurse of swart nations. So the person who, or the thing that gave rise to swart nations. Well, here this word swart is probably a bit racist. He's talking about people who are not Caucasians. Yeah, people of dark-skinned people. So the Nile is the place that gave rise to nations of people of colour since the beginning of the world. Okay, so this is effectively where life began, is what he's saying. Are you really as fruitful, yeah, as we think you are? So are you really as productive? Or dost thou beguile such men to honour thee, who, worn with toil, rest for a space twixt Cairo and Decan? So are you really such a fruitful river, or are you beguiling, are you tricking the people who honour thee, who worship you, yeah? People who are worn with toil, who are exhausted and are looking for a place to rest between Cairo and Decan. So Cairo, the city, yeah. Decan actually talks about the stars on the horizon. Decan is actually a concept in ancient Egyptian astronomy, and the Decan is the group of stars that are on the horizon just before the sun comes up. So these are the last stars you see on the horizon before the sun comes up and you can't see them anymore. So between effectively Cairo and the stars on the horizon. Oh, may dark fancies err, they surely do. So I think he's then saying, well, maybe I'm getting carried away. I'm getting carried away with my romantic ideas and my romantic concepts of the world and of the river. And then he says, they surely do. It's certain that I'm getting carried away by my imagination and imagining fantastic things. 'Tis ignorance that makes a barren waste of all beyond itself. So I think ignorance, this is talking about the ignorance of Europeans who think that outside the very edge of the Nile, everything is a barren waste, it's an empty waste, it's a desert with no life to it. But in fact, this is not true. Thou dost bedew green rushes like our rivers. So now he's saying that the Nile has many things that are exactly in common with rivers in Britain. Yeah, so they're green rushes. These are plants growing on the edge. And the dew is the water that you find on plants in the morning. So the rushes, the reeds beside the River Nile, have dew on them in the morning, just like British rivers. And dost taste the pleasant sunrise. Yeah, and the Nile experiences the rising of the sun, and so do rivers in the UK. Green isles hast thou too. So you've also got little green islands. I'm thinking of little green islands in the Thames. And to the sea as happily dost haste. And you flow unerringly and happily towards the sea like all rivers do. So, this is an ode to the Nile, a poem to the River Nile. If you enjoyed the video, give it a rating, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you soon. Bye for now. To the Nile by Keats.